Hello! So today I want to show you the Accordion Mini Album. So far, so blah, but look at this. Ta-da! Isn't that awesome? So you've got your accordion pockets here. And then you've got a pocket here. Belly band on here. And then this also has a belly band. And this flips up and you can either tuck it in or make a closure. For this one I tucked it in, but I think for the next one I'll make a closure. And then on the back there's another pocket. Oh. These cards, these tags, and the cards that fit into the accordion, these kind of journal cards, they come with the kit as well. You get the blank version. This is just a decorated version to let you see how it looks. Alright, so let's put one together. So the template kit comes with a number of files. So first of all you have the cover. So that's this panel here, which is this. And then you get the two belly bands, and then this is the closure as well, which is optional. Now you'll see here that you have a line. You can either like make a cut, or you can use that as a guide for using this piece here, which is the closure, so that this flap will go into there. Then you have a pocket. Then you have your side flaps. This is the left hand flap, this is the right hand flap. This is also a pocket that goes in the right hand flap. Then you've got your page of journaling cards, which you print out, several pages of this in order to fill your accordion album. Then you've got your accordion pockets. So you only get one page of these, so you'll have to print out several of these to fill your pocket, to fill your album. And then I've got some mats, and what mats are, basically, you have two options when you're making this album. So as you can see here, I've printed double-sided and just cut the album directly. What you can also do is cut the album from plain cardstock and then use decorative panels to decorate the album. And this is what these are for. These mats are basically the decorative panels that you would cut out and then stick onto your album base in order to decorate it, if you wanted to just make the base from plain card. So you've got mats for your cover. You also have mats for the pocket and the belly bands and the closure. These mats are for the inside and the back. And then these mats are for the journaling card. And one of the reasons that I introduced mats was just for like variation, but also because if you don't have heavyweight cardstock, so I recommend, so this particular album is made from 160 GSM, works quite well, but this particular bit, this accordion bit, needs to be, I think, quite, could do with being a little bit stiffer, just to make it more, to give it more longevity. So if you didn't have heavyweight cardstock for any reason, you can use the mats as a way to increase the stiffness of your album, because if you think about it, you'll have one layer, which is just the plain card, and then you'll have another layer, which is the pattern paper on one side and on the other side. So that's 3 layers, plus I recommend you use wet glue. That's personal preference, because it adds like another structural layer to make the whole thing a lot stiffer. Also with the journaling cards and the photo mats, 160 is actually not bad, but if you wanted it to be stiffer, you could then, use the mats as a way to achieve that. So if you were working with digital papers, what you would do is print out your template, then put it back into the printer and print over this with whatever digital paper that you have. Alternatively, if you know how to use graphic design software, you can apply the patterns directly to the different elements in order to make yourself a sort of your own sort of kit, like I did with this one. You can, of course, also use your cutting machine to cut out all these shapes if you don't want to cut them all out by hand. So I tried to make the same thing. This one is made using thicker cards. This is 240, I think, GSM cardstock, and then I've matted on both sides. So it's really quite, very sturdy. And with this one, it didn't go together quite as easily as the last time, although it still worked beautifully. The spine was not big enough to wrap around this, and so you see with all the, if you take out all the cards, then it's a lot less bulky. Once you put all the cards in, the bulk increases even more. So I've adjusted the files to account for that. So rather than actually specifying the scoring dimensions, as I did with the original, I've put to the score in for this fold that's nearest to the center, but the second fold that defines the spine, you will measure and sort of put yourself, and it's all determined by the size of the pockets, how many pockets you decide to use, the size, the thickness of the stack and everything. So to that end, I've changed the order according to the original assembly guide. I've changed the order in which to do things. So I recommend that you do your pockets first. So first things first is to print out all your elements. So if you've got a cutting machine, then this part is super easy. You just use your cutting machine to cut out all your shapes. So first things first, if you cut out all your shapes, you'll need the cover. You've got your right hand flap. Now this is the left hand flap. And originally I did it this way because it was going to also be a pocket. But I found that if you put, like 10, this one has 10 pockets. This original one had 9 pockets. If you put 10 pockets in here, it's actually, there's no need really for this extra pocket. You can't really even see it. So I don't think it's necessary. I'm not going to change it because, you might decide that you actually do want that extra pocket for other things. But now that I don't actually think that it's necessary. So you could just trim that, or just cut 2 of these and just have a normal flaps on both sides. So that's an optional thing. Then you've got your belly bands, which will attach to your panels, and the pockets. And obviously then you'll need the pockets, the accordion pockets. Now originally I had this shape and I was cutting out 2 and then gluing them together. But then I thought to myself, why? It actually just makes more sense to weld them together in the first place and then fold it in half and do it that way. Because it reduces the amount of gluing, so you don't have to. With this one, you'd have to glue on this side and glue on this side, whereas with this one, you just have to put glue on this side. I don't know. I just feel like it's an easier process to have one solid shape to cut out and fold rather than to have to glue 2 shapes together. So this is an amendment with the updated files. Incidentally, if you've got these from Etsy or from Creative Fabrica, I've updated both sets of files, so you'll have this new version when you go to download. So yeah, so I've cut out, so I just need to cut this one out as well, and then we can start constructing the project. So I've used this just bright pink paper which was in my stash, which will match the paper that I'm planning to use on the inside of the album. So with these new style pockets, you will just, I'm going to keep all the messy lines on the outside, find the halfway point, and then fold in half. And then apply glue along the bottom edge. Because these are going to be opening and closing all the time, well, not all the time, but you know, they are going to be opening and closing, you know, do put a generous amount of glue on to make sure that all the edges have been properly adhered, and then give it a good burnish to make sure that it's properly stuck. Now, just for the sake of demonstration, this, if you had used the original file, you would have pockets that look like this. So in that case, just put glue along the long edge, glue along the bottom, and then stick these two sides together. Once again, make sure that the edges are pressed down really well. And then you'll just do that and build your stack. But wait for the glue to dry. But you see, the folded is better because there's only one side to sort of to worry about in terms of adhesion rather than the two sides. So I'm going to create my stack, and then we'll move on to the next step. Once you have all your pockets, you can then build your stack. I'm just going to get this as flat as possible. Okay, so when you're building your stack, it's important to get them to line up at the back and at the bottom. So start at the bottom and add glue horizontally just below where this curve is, and then about half an inch or 1.5 centimeters from the bottom. Try to be as consistent as you can with this glue placement, because it will affect the final look of the pockets once they're fan open, and I'll show you that. Show you what I mean. Okay, I want to show you the difference between using a thicker materials. This is the same cardstock that I used to make the album, and using some thinner material. This is 135 GSM paper. So I recommend apart from the fact that this would make a thicker stack, it's not massively different, but you can see that one's thicker than the other. Okay, when you make your pockets, a few things to consider. First of all, stack them all together. Try to be consistent about where you place the glue, and I'll show you why in a minute. Before you try and open it, just put your finger into each pocket. Just encourage it to open a bit. Okay, before you try to open it, do that all the way through, and then gently try to open your accordion. This is the thicker cardstock that I've used, and I don't know if you can kind of get a feel for it on camera, but it's quite resistant. There's quite a lot of resistance, and it's hard to open it all the way. So if I was to put this in the album, it would be difficult to get it to open all the way. And this is 10 pockets. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I put my hand in, yeah, you can see it's difficult to get it to open all the way. On the other hand, using paper, this is 135 GSM paper. If I put my, you can see it opens up on almost flat. It's the same 10 pockets, but it opens out much more easily. So make your pockets from lightweight cardstock, heavyweight paper, lightweight cardstock. So it's anything from sort of 130, 135 GSM paper to about 160, 180 max is what I would recommend. Another thing to be mindful of is the placement of the glue. So you can see here, I can just make it out that there's an uneven kind of gap here. So you can see that it's not even, and that's because I've not been consistent with the glue placement. So here the glue is sort of at this height, and then over here I've made the glue go higher and then back down to this level. So if you want it to look nicer, try to be consistent about where you place the glue. Also try to leave a big, a big enough gap from the bottom, because if you put it too close to the bottom, then this won't be able to open out because it'll be stuck together. I unfortunately did that, which is why you can see I've made a mistake there. So be careful about that as well. This one you can see is much more consistent. It looks much nicer, but obviously the problems with the stiffness. So those are the two main things about the pockets. Make your pockets, okay? Test it out. See if you're happy with the way that the pockets are going. So you want it to be able to fan out completely flat like this, because obviously these are going to be stuck down. If it looks like it's, a little bit, if the pockets are straining too much, add another pocket or two and then try again. Once you're happy with your accordion being able to fan out completely flat, then next step is to measure the thickness of this stack. Give everything a good press. You can even put something heavy on top of it to just, while it's drying, to help it adhere very well. But it's really important to let this dry thoroughly before you try to do anything else. So this is a good opportunity to move on to making the main body of the folio. So what we're going to do is get yourself a ruler, measure the thickness of this stack. So this is it's about 6 millimeters. So that is about 1/4 of an inch, just about. That's the size of the spine that we're going to need. Okay, so put this to one side, let it dry. The left side folds in first, and you can see it has a tendency to want to spring up. You can press it down, but it does have a tendency to want to spring up. So if this spine or hinge, whatever you want to call it, is not big enough, what will happen is this page will hold up this page, and then this one will want to sit up. So if that sits up and that folds over like that, then that will want to sit up like this as well. So then when it comes to trying to bring this one over, it's going to, you're going to have to, yeah, it's going to be difficult to get it to fold over both of them. So if this is 6mm or 1/4 of an inch, maybe add a couple of millimeters, because obviously once you've, these are just plain cards, so you might, if they're just going to be journaling cards, that's fine, but if you're going to add any kind of, if they're going to be photo mats, or perhaps you want to put some stickers on or further embellishments, it's going to add to the bulk. On that note, I would say that it's not really suitable for really kind of layered embellishments, this design, unless you make this spine much thicker. You see, this is a bit lopsided and it doesn't sit flat. We want it to sit flat and we want it to be straight. So adding the extra dimension to the spines on the right, the bottom and the top should do that. If you're doing the template method, which is what I'm going to do here, grab your paper, lay it down, and then just trace around it with a pencil. Now I'm going to just mark this first score line, just so the new files, if you've got the original files, they'll have 2 score lines. Ignore this outer line and just mark the line that's closest to the center. So that's that, and then also the side panels. Let's see, I think even though I'm not going to use the pocket, I'll just demonstrate it. Again, mark the first score line. And I'm making a bit of a mess with the pencil line, to be honest. It isn't the neatest. That's okay. You can just use an eraser to erase the lines at the end. So I've marked out the outlines of the body and the flaps, so it's just a matter of cutting those out. So I've said this stack is about 6mm, so I'm going to make this score line, or this spine here, 7mm, just to be on the safe side. So as this is 7, I'm going to make this a couple of millimeters larger than that, so about 9mm. I think earlier I said 2mm was about 1/4 of an inch, but I think it's more like 1/8 of an inch. And then that means that these now will be 11 if we add another couple of millimeters onto that. So as you can see, we have slightly ascending spine heights, widths, depths. The result of increasing the width of these 2 sort of spine areas is that this will reduce the size of these 2 pieces, which will reduce just how much they overlap. So in the updated file, I have increased the size of this bit as much as I can for the paper, because we're limited by the size of the paper. But there still should be enough of an overlap for it to work. It just means that actually you probably, you might have to use an alternative closure method rather than creating the slit in the actual folio cover. Okay, so now I'm going to score all my pieces. I'm I'm going to use the narrow end of my scoring tool. If you have one, then that might be worth trying for more accuracy on the fold lines. Okay, so we have our fold lines now. Now, I don't want the inside of my album to be white. I would like it to be decorated, so I'm going to bring in my mats. Now, this mat was designed with a particular spine width in mind. So what you can do is you can either measure what you have left and then take off like a couple of millimeters, or like half a millimeter, sorry, take off like half a centimeter, 5 millimeters, or a quarter of an inch to leave a small border, or you can take your existing mat and just trim it to leave a nice border all the way around. As I already have the template cut, I don't have to do much measuring, so I'm just going to use my mat and then do it that way. So I'm going to bring in my paper and then just draw around and trim it to size. These pieces will fit here. So now I just need to trim them down a little bit. So you can eyeball it, or you can just put them in place and then use your pencil to mark a border that matches the top and sides. About there and there. I'm going to go a little bit bigger. So you can always trim it down, but you can't add back on again. Okay, that's a good fit. So just do that for all these pieces. Okay, I'm going to switch to voiceover here because my kids came home at this point and started making a racket in the background. I'm sure you don't want to hear that. And I've also speeded it up slightly just because I think, just to keep the video a little bit shorter. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I want to make a pocket for the right flap, and I want it to be the same size as the mat. So I was just trying to measure that up here to make sure that it is the same size as the mat. Obviously the template is slightly bigger than the mat ended up being because we've adjusted the size of the spine, and also the mat is slightly smaller anyway. So I'm just going to trim that off and then glue the pocket down on 3 sides. So I also need a second pocket, and what I was doing there was just using the template to give me the nice slope on either side. So the template hangs off each edge equally so that you get an even slope to the pocket on both sides. So at this point I want to put the folds into the album cover. I'm just going to use a ruler to help me make the creases. And then also I'm just going to try and erase the pencil lines that I used to mark the position of the spine. And then also fold the side flaps. and then add the panels, the mats. So I stick the central mat down, and then I promptly take it off again because I forgot to attach the right panel first. So in order to hide like the joins, the right hand side panel, stick it to the cover first, and then you put the mat on top. Obviously, if you're using printed cardstock, double-sided, then and you're not using the center mat, then that doesn't really matter. But if you are doing it this way, then there is an order to how you're supposed to glue things down. I'm using like it's scrapbook paper, but it's the cardstock from the scrapbook paper, but it has a really kind of shiny finish on it. It's very slippery, so it does take a while to glue things down. So this is what this is what I was mentioning earlier. The original design has this additional pocket, so you would only glue it on the two sides and then leave one side open to act as a pocket. Because of the way that the accordion works, I don't actually think that that's necessary anymore. So you can just cut that off if you want. But if you did that, make sure to glue both panels down first before you put the mat on top. And then just apply the decorative panels to the other flaps. This method does take the longest, but I think that it makes the album just a lot more sturdy. And then you want to glue your pocket down onto the right hand side. It was just such a stroke of luck that the pink card I had in my stash was an exact match for the pink from the scrapbook paper pad that I had. Okay, so then you take your your stack of pockets and apply glue to the back side in the same way that you did when you were sort of gluing the individual pockets together. And then just make sure that it's not interfering. You can still fold the sides up and across easily without any obstruction so that it's sitting in the right place. And then fold the side panel over, straighten everything up, and then press it down and wait for the pocket to adhere to the side. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to make the belly bands. I'm not going to bother with the template. I just cut the cut strips about 1.5 centimeters wide, and then I'm trimming them down to the size of the album. Now, I would put the belly band in the middle usually, but you can probably, I don't know if you can see that white speck in the top corner there. I've damaged the cardstock, so to hide it, I put the belly band on the side. So it will act more as a tuck spot. Because I'm using this specialty cardstock, it is very slippery. So at this point, if you're using this kind of shiny cardstock, it might be better off. You might be better off using double-sided tape as opposed to wet glue. And then you can see from the profile that everything folds together nicely. But now there is a little bit of a gap between the top panel and the bottom panel because we've adjusted the size of the spine. I have adjusted this source file to account for that. So if you've already bought this, you can just go back to wherever you bought it from and download the new version of the file. And you can see from the comparison of the two that by adjusting the spine now, the profile looks so much better and everything sits much flatter. Okay, so on to the pockets. It should be dry by now, so just very gently open up the accordion, and you can use your finger just to tease the pockets open if you need to, and then you can see that it looks great. And then the whole thing closes up properly. Now at this point you would print out and cut out your journaling cards and tags and stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the ones I've already cut out. So then you put them into your pockets. This is how it will look. So these can be journaling cards that you can write on. They could be photo mats. You can use them for whatever purpose you want to use them for. And then on the back, you can add the pocket. That's obviously optional. I used the same pink card that I used for inside, but it didn't quite work, so I just cut a mat from the same material that I made the cover from. And then I'm going to put it under something heavy just to help everything adhere properly, because like I said, the wet glue is sliding around a little bit. And here's the finished album. So I've used a Velcro dot, half a Velcro dot, as my closure. And I really love the reveal. It's so great. Well, that was a journey, but we've come to the end. I hope that these instructions are helpful to you. Like I said, I will be adjusting all of the original files to account for any of the changes that I've made in this tutorial. So if you've already bought it, don't worry, you can just go back to the place you bought it from, download it again, and you'll have the updated file at no extra charge. I will also be filming a short video just to show how to open the files in your cutting machine software. So I have Cricut Design Space and I have Canvas Workspace for the scan and cut. So look out for that. And finally, if you go to the channel information, I've activated the community tab. So I think you either go to community or you go to posts. But either way, if you subscribe to the channel, you can post onto in the community area. So if you've bought this template or any template from me, from the Make Wallpaper Company, please do consider sharing your creations in the community, because I personally would love to see what everybody comes up with. I provide the sort of bare bones, but the way that you express your creativity is what makes it special. So I think it would be wonderful to see everybody's creations, and also just for us to sort of help and inspire each other, because, everybody's going to interpret things in a slightly different way. So that would be wonderful. So if you subscribe, please consider doing that. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing so that you can do that. And yeah, I think that's everything for now. So I'm going to leave you. I hope to be back soon with lots of additional tutorials. I know that I have a bit of a backlog at the time of filming this, so I'm working my way through everything. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you if you've made a purchase. Take care and see you in the next one. Bye!